Шановні журналісти, до вашої уваги.
We are going to offer your attention the report about the situation in the east of Ukraine, delivered by Colonel Lysenko, Speaker of the Presidential Administration in the issues of ATO. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I would like to tell you about the events which took place for the last 24 hours in the east of Ukraine. In the Lugansk sector, the combat actions gradually intensify. Yesterday there was the artillery shelling of the positions of the ATO forces near the village of Siza, which is almost near the Ukrainian-Russian frontier. According to the intelligence data, the fire was provided from big distance, about 15 kilometers, specifically from Bibilsky-Lvata village between Lugansk and Krasnodon. In addition to that, there was a mortar and grenade launcher fire in near Stanitsa Luganska, exclusively during dark hours of the day. Another shelling took place near Stary Aidar. A very unquiet situation was to the north of Bakhmut highway between the militants and the ATO forces. They were about a dozen exchanging fire at this section, Trokhizben-Krimsky-Orikhovo. The enemy applied the mortar launchers, including 120 millimeters, which are subject to withdrawal according to the Minsk agreements. In Zolotempo-Pass, there was a quiet situation. However, in the Troitsky, they've recorded or registered 5 episodes of violation of ceasefire, mortar shelling by the occupants, some APCs and snipers were active. In Donetsk, the next sector, there is a very tense situation. Near the village of Lugansk, the enemy again applied artillery. Also, very active are their snipers. Along the perimeter of the occupied Gorlivka, down the Gorlivka, situation is relatively quiet. Over the 24 hours, some of the provocations on the part of the enemy took place in Mayorsk, Kirovsk, and Novgorodsk, and no heavy weaponry was used by the enemy there. At the section of the front from Gorlivka to Sinvata, it was also quiet, but the situation near the Donetsk airport somewhat aggravated. Our positions openly were again the target of the multi-rocket launchers Grad. According to our intelligence data, they fired from Putilsky woods. Very heavy shelling took place near Avdiivka, and some of the shells exploded in the residential quarters. In Pisky and Opitne, they have on a regular basis there is engagement on the front line. And the same situation in Marinka, where we had 17 cases of violation of the ceasefire.
It was calm on the way out from Donetsk to the side of Volnovakha. In Mariupol sector, the major combat was at the fortified line of defense Bogdanivka-Starokhnatівka. From morning to late night, the enemy has conducted 16 powerful artillery and mortar shellings of our positions. Besides, they hit the village Mykolaiivka to the south of Dokuchaysk. However, as a result of masterfully organized defense, there were no losses among our fighters on this part of front line. Also, the gunmen have shelled from mortars Termolik, and they shelled Ukrainian positions to the east from Lebedinsky from 122 millimeter cannons. The howitzer battery of the enemy is located next to the neighboring village Kominterneve. As a result of combat, there were no killed Ukrainian military. Last day, 5 were wounded in the vicinity of Donetsk airport. Ukraine has liberated another 12 people from the gunmen captivity. Among the liberated are 3 fighters from the 11th Air Defense Regiment, 3 from 128th Detached Mountain Infantry Brigade, and so on. There's also a courageous fighter from the National Guards Battalion Donbass who spent almost a year in captivity. According to Ukrainian Special Services, there are still 155 Ukrainian fighters held as hostages by gunmen. The Security Service of Ukraine has detained a man who was a member of the bandit formation LNR. He has volunteered to join the bandit formation under the leadership of the now late Alexei Mozgovy. In July 2014, he took part on the fighting for Lysychansk. Now you'll see his video testimony. I joined the formation of Alexei Mozgovy in 2014. After this, I was serving at the road checkpoint, and then I was taken to a bridge which we mined, where we put the landmines. And now you see the photos of warriors from Kirovograd region who are now coming back to their homes from the front line, and they are being met by their near and dear. So the guys have fulfilled their combat task and they come back home. This is all I have to tell you. If there are any questions, you're welcome. Please introduce yourself and ask a question. Stepan Filipchuk, the Ukrainian word, Ukrainsky слово. A former officer. Why there is no map of combat action like this? I think that I and other people are very interested in a map, because there's no idea about what's going on, for instance, in another, not how they wage war, but with what they wage war. I think a tender procedure should be launched for the supply of the anti-terrorist operation forces. Thank you. First, we will ask our colleague journalists and yourself to address them, so that the information that we make public during briefings, it is there on the internet, including the map of what's happening in the east of Ukraine, and that it can be printed as well. And you know, this is the will of journalists, their goodwill of their editors. You should address the editors and managers of our Ukrainian publications so that they more actively use the information that we provide. Again, about the tender procedures, purchase procedures for the armaments, you should address the profile department of the specialized department in the Ministry of Defense, which is engaged in developing and buying different kinds of weaponry. If you have any suggestions, they will be assessed by our specialists. They will be field tested, but this is a rather long process, and we need the armaments now, today and yesterday. 1+1. Mr. Colonel, about the shellings of the 26th August, the official data says there were 7 or 8 victims on the Ukrainian side, and today we heard 21 dead next to Volnovakha or Mariupol from unofficial sources. So what is the official figure, and where they took the figure 21? And some sources say even more. The information that we provide is the information from the unit commanders, and they are obliged to provide this information within 24 hours. And this information is being collected from every commander. We do not want to hide information anymore, but we have gone through different situations. There were some voluntary units who have not always reported on their casualties. However, we are now at the stage when we have a officially confirmed full information on dead and wounded, and if unofficial sources are working, then you should ask for where they take these figures. As for the 26th of August, we had 7 killed and 13 wounded. This is official. Any other questions? If there are no other questions, thank you, Colonel Lysenko, and we will expect you with another report tomorrow, and at 1 p.m. we'll talk about the current stage of reforms.